What if the greatest threat to modern medicine isn't mutating in a high-tech lab or a crowded hospital, but has been sleeping inside a frozen cave since the Bronze Age? Recently, scientists ventured deep into the ice of a Romanian cave and chipped away a frozen block containing a bacterium that hadn't seen the light of day for 5,000 years. They thawed it out, they revived it, and then they tested it against our most advanced modern antibiotics. It survived. A microbe from a time before the Great Pyramids were finished already possessed the genetic armor to defeat drugs invented in the 21st century. How is that even possible? And as the planet warms, what else is waking up? To truly grasp the magnitude of this discovery, we have to travel into the heart of the Apusani Mountains in Transylvania, Romania. Hidden deep underground is the Scărișoara Ice Cave, one of the oldest and largest underground glaciers on Earth. The ice at the very bottom of this subterranean vault is estimated to be over 10,000 years old. It is a place of perpetual winter cloaked in absolute darkness. When researchers extracted a core of ice dating back 5,000 years, they were looking for clues about past climates. Instead, they found life. Specifically, they isolated a strain of bacteria known as Pinobacillus. Through careful lab procedures, they slowly coaxed the bacteria out of its millennia-long slumber. But the real shock came when they subjected this ancient organism to a panel of modern antibiotics. We are talking about highly engineered modern medical marvels, drugs that have saved millions of lives over the last century. The 5,000-year-old bacterium simply shrugged them off. It demonstrated natural, built-in resistance to several different classes of antibiotics. At first glance, this makes no sense. How could an organism develop a defense against a weapon that wouldn't be invented for another 5 millennia? The answer forces us to rethink everything we know about medicine. We tend to view antibiotics as human inventions, brilliant chemical compounds cooked up in pristine laboratories. But the truth is, humanity didn't invent antibiotics. We discovered them. The vast majority of our antibiotics are derived from naturally occurring compounds found in soil bacteria and fungi. Alexander Fleming didn't invent penicillin out of thin air. He noticed that a specific type of mold was naturally producing a chemical that destroyed bacteria. For billions of years, long before humans even existed, microorganisms have been locked in a microscopic, invisible arms race. Fungi produce chemical toxins to kill bacteria competing for the same resources. In response, the bacteria evolve genetic armor, specific proteins and pumps that neutralize or expel those toxic chemicals. This brutal, endless turf war has been raging in the dirt beneath our feet since the dawn of life on Earth. So when that 5,000-year-old bacterium in the Romanian ice cave encountered our modern antibiotics, it wasn't facing a futuristic alien weapon. It was facing the exact same chemical toxins its ancestors had been fighting in the soil for millions of years. Its genetic armor was already in place. The resistance wasn't new, it was ancient. This revelation brings us to a much larger global issue. We have to start looking at the Earth's ice, not just glaciers, but the vast stretches of permafrost in the Arctic, as the ultimate biological time capsule. In the right conditions, ice is a perfect preservative. It provides a stable, freezing environment protected from ultraviolet radiation, oxygen, and structural damage. When the temperature drops, certain microbes enter a state of suspended animation known as cryptobiosis. They effectively shut down their metabolism completely. They aren't dead, but they aren't quite alive in the traditional sense either. They are paused. Right now, you probably know that melting ice caps mean rising sea levels and altered weather patterns. But they also mean the doors to this massive biological vault are slowly being forced open. We are running an unprecedented, uncontrolled experiment on a planetary scale. We are exposing modern ecosystems to ancient biology that has been locked away for tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years. It sounds like the perfect setup for a terrifying science fiction movie. But the real-world science of what happens next is far more nuanced and in some ways far more complicated than a simple Hollywood disaster script. Let's get one thing straight right away. We aren't necessarily facing a sudden, apocalyptic zombie plague of ancient diseases coming to wipe out humanity. Why? Because the vast majority of these ancient microbes actually prefer the freezing cold. They evolved to thrive in soil, water, and freezing temperatures. To a bacterium adapted to the frigid permafrost, a warm-blooded human body running at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit is a hostile, boiling, completely alien desert. Most of them simply cannot survive inside us. They have no interest in infecting us, and they lack the evolutionary tools to do so. The real danger is completely indirect. It lies in a microscopic process called horizontal gene transfer. Bacteria do not reproduce like animals. They don't need to wait for a new generation to pass on advantageous traits. They are more like microscopic mechanics. When two bacteria encounter each other in the environment, they can physically connect and swap spare parts. They can trade tiny loops of DNA called plasmids, which contain genetic blueprints. Remember that 5,000-year-old Romanian bacterium with its ancient antibiotic resistance? Even if that specific microbe cannot infect a human, it can wash out of the melting ice and into a stream. It can travel downriver and eventually bump into a modern common bacterium, perhaps a strain of E. coli or a bacterium known to cause cholera or staph infections. In a fraction of a second, the ancient microbe can hand over a copy of its genetic armor to the modern pathogen. That is the terrifying part. Ancient ice acting as an open source genetic library, upgrading today's diseases, giving them the exact blueprints they need to defeat our modern medical treatments. It threatens to accelerate the antibiotic resistance crisis we are already desperately fighting in hospitals around the world. And if you think this is purely theoretical, we already have a grim real-world precedent of the dangers lurking in the ice. In the summer of 2016, an intense, unseasonable heat wave hit the Yamal Peninsula in Siberia. Temperatures soared, sending in melting layers of permafrost that had remained frozen solid for nearly a century. As the ground thawed, it exposed the buried carcass of a reindeer that had died over 75 years earlier. That reindeer hadn't died of old age. It had died of anthrax. Anthrax is caused by a bacterium that is uniquely equipped for long-term survival. When environmental conditions become harsh, it forms highly durable armored spores. These spores can lie dormant in the soil or in the permafrost for decades, waiting for the right moment. The 2016 heat wave was that moment. As the ice melted, the 75-year-old anthrax spores washed into the surrounding soil and groundwater. They woke up. The result was devastating. Over 2,000 modern reindeer grazing in the area were infected and died. Dozens of people from the local nomadic Nenets community were hospitalized with infections, and tragically, a 12-year-old boy lost his life. It required a massive military and medical intervention to contain the outbreak. The Siberian anthrax incident was a stark, undeniable reminder that what is buried in the ice doesn't always stay dead. As the permafrost continues to thaw at an accelerating rate, scientists warn that we could see more pockets of ancient anthrax or other forgotten pathogens returning to the surface. But what about viruses? Every few months, we see explosive clickbait headlines warning that scientists have found an ancient virus in the ice. It is true. Scientists, particularly a dedicated team of French researchers, have successfully revived viruses that were frozen in Siberian permafrost for over 30,000 years. Zane, but there is a massive catch that the sensational headlines usually leave out. Viruses are incredibly fragile compared to bacteria. They don't have cellular walls or complex internal machinery. They are essentially just tiny strands of genetic code wrapped in a delicate protein shell. The immense pressure, radiation, and sheer passage of time inside a glacier usually shreds viral DNA and RNA into useless fragments. They degrade like an old magnetic cassette tape left out in the sun. The ancient viruses that scientists have managed to revive belong to a very specific category known as giant viruses, like Pithovirus sibericum. They are physically massive compared to common human viruses, and more importantly, they are highly specialized. These ancient giant viruses only know how to hunt one specific type of prey, single-celled organisms called amoebas. Viruses operate on a lock and key mechanism. The proteins on the outside of a virus must perfectly match the receptors on the outside of a host cell to gain entry. To a 30,000-year-old amoeba virus, human respiratory cells or blood cells are heavy steel doors, and the virus does not possess the key. They emerge from the ice entirely harmless to humans, plants, and animals. So where does that leave us? Are we doomed by an ancient, frozen curse waiting to be unleashed by climate change? The short, grounded answer is no. We are not on the brink of an instantaneous, cinematic doomsday caused by a prehistoric plague. The main concern isn't a sudden outbreak of a flesh-eating zombie virus. It is the slow, gradual, and complex environmental shift. It's the small but highly consequential risk of ancient genetic material sneaking into into the modern microbiome. It is the quiet contribution to the very real problem of antibiotic resistance, making our routine surgeries and minor infections slightly more dangerous over time. Furthermore, some scientists argue that digging into these ancient icy vaults might actually yield positive results. If these ancient microbes possess unique genetic traits, they might also produce novel chemical compounds that we haven't discovered yet. By studying them, we might actually find the blueprints for new antibiotics to replace the ones that are currently failing us. Scientists across the globe are monitoring this frozen frontier closely. They are taking core samples, mapping genetic data, and watching the permafrost. For now, these ancient microbes remain fascinating, humbling scientific mysteries rather than immediate world-ending threats. They remind us of the incredible resilience of life on Earth and how deeply interconnected the distant past is with our present. Ultimately, the microbes waking up in the ice are a symptom of a much larger problem. We have much bigger, immediate global challenges to solve, namely the rapidly changing climate that is causing the ice to melt in the first place. The best way to protect ourselves from whatever is hiding in the biological time capsules of the Arctic is simply to keep them frozen. But I want to know what you think. With millions of square miles of permafrost out there, holding hundreds of thousands of years of Earth's history, what do you think is the strangest or most surprising thing still waiting to be discovered in the deep ice? Let me know down in the comments. I'll be reading and replying to the best ones. If you enjoyed diving into this scientific mystery, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you want to know about another bizarre mystery hiding in plain sight, click the video right here on the screen. Thanks for watching and stay curious.